Hello, hello. I hope everyone is doing well and has weathered the hurricane well. I know that some of you have had power outages. I know that schedules have been thrown into a tizzy by school cancellations and all the things that come along with unpredictable weather in North Carolina. That said, if you're having difficulty with anything, let me know. I did send out a message very late last night. I'm sorry that it went out so late. I had a power outage yesterday afternoon that threw me a little bit off track. But I did send out a message letting you all know that for anyone affected, I'm glad to extend the deadline for the assignments due today, Friday, to Monday at noon. A lot of you have already gotten work in. I've been working very hard to get things graded and returned so that you all can move on with your assignments. That said, if you have questions, if you need help, please do not hesitate to get in touch. So, I've been responding to discussion board posts, to checkpoints. I finally got all of your introductory writing assignments returned. I'm sorry it's taken so long. As I have mentioned, it's been a little bit of a rocky semester start. So I've really enjoyed getting to know you all through your writing. I'm enjoying reading your discussion post. This has been very fun on the teacher end. I hope it's been decently pleasant for you guys. I know that doing all the writing is not necessarily the most fun for everyone. I wanted to address a few things that I've seen just kind of in your concerns about reading and writing as I've been going through the journals and the posts on the discussion board. One of the things that a lot of you cited with making writing problematic for you is just the act of getting started. And a lot of you talked about introductions. Something I would really like for you to try if you're a person who has a hard time getting started, don't worry about the introduction. I know it sounds counterintuitive. What I encourage students to do is to actually write the body of the essay first and then come back and do the introduction after you're done. The reason that I encourage this is that you, generally speaking, have your information for the body of the paper, right? You know some things that you want to include in the body of that paper because that's where your facts, that's where your information, your support is. So do that first. It's a lot easier to create your introduction after you know what it is you're introducing. And once you've gotten started with writing, it's not that hard and you can go back and create that introduction. I call this writing from the inside out. It's something that I practice with my English 111 students. So if you haven't done it before, give it a try. Don't worry about your introduction until you've drafted the rest of the essay. Start with the body, let your momentum carry you through the conclusion, and go back. Now that said, if you write great introductions right off the bat, you've got a knack for that, keep doing what you're doing. This tip is for those who need some help getting started and working on those introductions. A lot of you talked about organization issues in your writing and said that, you basically write a draft and it's disorganized. Well, one thing is drafting a lot of times is disorganized, and that's fine. Writing is not a linear process, right? We don't sit down, write our introduction, power through the body of the paper, and write our conclusion, and then we're done. Writing is a process that we have to go into, leave, come back to, go to the end, move back to the beginning, and that's okay. I know that it's time consuming. I know it can be frustrating because I think that we, especially in this age of digital media, feel like we write something, we type it out and we're done. If you think back, and this is where I'm going to sound like everybody's grandma, when I was coming along, we would write drafts and then we would type those drafts on a typewriter. I know, right? And this was actually pretty great. It was time consuming. Sure, if you made an error, it was a giant pain in the rear, but in the act of rewriting, in the act of drafting, in the act of typing, we got to go back through our work over and over again. We got to think about it a little differently. We got to change some things. It's okay to need to do that. So I encourage you, don't look at your organization issues as a problem. Look at them as part of the writing process that you need to go back and reorganize. Now, some of the ways that I like to tackle reorganizing my writing, sometimes I'll color code with highlighters. I also like reverse outlines where I go back and make an outline of what I actually wrote. I think that many of you are familiar with using outlines to begin your writing, but using them on the back end is really a great tool because a lot of times as we draft, we end up doing things a bit differently from what we had planned. So going back and outlining what you actually wrote can kind of help you see the forest without the trees getting in the way. It can give you that overview. And maybe then you go through and color code and decide to move things. Something that I do sometimes, which is going to sound kind of nuts, I'll print out a document and I'll cut it up, tape it back together, and then retype it. I know that sounds silly in this age of copy paste and all that, but there's something to be said for actually having the pieces in front of you physically and moving them around. I do it. I've got you probably, I guess you can't see it here, I've got this really great blank wall that sometimes I'll take the calendar off of in my office, and I'll tape stuff up there, move it around to try to make it work. I do this with lesson plans. I do it with your syllabus, your schedule for the semester. So don't be afraid to make it a physical process. I think that a lot of us work better in a hands-on environment, and that's a way that we can do that. Some other things that were mentioned, citations. We'll continue practicing with citations in the course. I know you all have had 111, so you are you're familiar with how to do it. In MLA and APA is a little bit different. The good news is once you understand MLA, it's a lot easier to understand how other citation methods work. So this first assignment, this APA assignment this week was designed for me to make sure you have the right kind of article, that you know how to cite it, that you know how to create your in-text citation and your reference entry. And if you're having trouble with that, please look at the Purdue Online Writing Lab. Please look at the information in your field guide. Look at the samples, the sample essays that I provided in Blackboard, and try to follow that template. Always use these resources. I'm never going to take that stuff away from you. I don't expect you to memorize how to do this. Have I memorized some of it? Yeah, because I've been doing it every day for a really long time. But I still have to get out my APA manual a lot. I still have to look up how to cite a particular thing in MLA. So that use the tools. This is more about learning how to manage the knowledge and to use the tools than it is about memorization. A lot of you talked about grammar. I'll continue to give you feedback on that in this course. The Writing and Reading Center is a great resource to get some additional help with particular grammatical issues. I've also got a lot of resources that I can help you with, and there's some help in the handbook as well. So when you feel like you need some extra help with sentence structure or subject-verb agreement or whatever, let me know and I can help point you in the right direction. I'm also glad to do some one-on-ones or even some topical sessions using Collaborate. So if a couple of you, say, hey, we really need a review on run-on sentences. Could you give us a review on commas? I'm glad to do that. So if you've got some requests, put them out there. Obviously, I do these videos. I'm glad to do them here and put them on YouTube. I'm glad to have a scheduled Collaborate session with some of you. So let me know what it is that I can do to help you. So moving on quickly to the things that we'll be tackling this week. I know a lot of you are well on your way with this science writing essay where you're sort of translating the article into something that the everyday person can understand. Awesome. If you're having trouble, let me know. For those of you who are working ahead, feel free to go ahead and submit them once you're happy with them. And if you're feeling stuck, let me know. If you're having trouble with the article, certainly let Ms. Burmeister, our course librarian, know. She's very helpful and can point you in the right direction. It looks like a lot of us had a good time with the kind of goofy article pairing that I gave you this week. I really wanted to highlight how the news media will sort of latch on to something in a scientific article and sensationalize it in a way that completely does not get to the heart of what was found and what was really researched. On the flip side of this, a lot of these scientific articles are so complicated, as many of you noted, that the average person would not read them. Plus, a lot of people don't have access to these articles, right? We get that with our access to the library, but the average person doesn't have all of these subscriptions. So hey, use that while you have it. You'll miss it when you don't. So a lot of these people aren't going to see them anyway, and that's one of those issues, is that we've got to kind of bridge the divide between the ones who are doing the research and writing about it and those of us out there in the public who want to access it. Because there's a lot of misinformation now, as you know. If you have been breathing and alive in the world lately, you know there's some distrust of the media, there's distrust of science, a lot of it unfounded, and one of the ways that we're going to have to bridge that gap is through good communication. When I was putting together this course a few years ago, I talked to a friend of mine who is a geneticist at a university out west, and I asked him what his students needed. And he said the number one thing they needed to be able to do was to be able to read scientific research and understand it. And the students going into science needed to be able to talk about what they were going to do in terms that other people could understand. And whether you're going into a field related to science or something entirely different, that's really important, being able to communicate with those who do not have all of the information at their disposal. So, this video got long. Sorry about that. I hope that this information has been helpful. If you still have questions, let me know. Feel free to email me with any topics you would like covered in a video, whether it's something we're working on right now in the course or a general reading related topic. I'm happy to do that. I hope y'all have a great weekend, and I will be back with you next week. Take care.